You're listening to Just My Show, your number one source for pop culture.
So Dance All Day is your first, major hit, not your first song, but your first major hit. Like a lot of your other work, much bigger here in the U.S. than over there. And I know you spend a lot of time touring here and promoting here, but was initially your success, was it sort of hard to appreciate what was going on since you had some physical distance between it?
Yeah, I guess it has perhaps created a slight air of unreality around it, because as you say, Wang Chung in Britain is a sort of obscure 80s band. I think, Dance All Days was a fairly substantial hit over here, although it didn't chart high. It was in the charts for a long time. It took a long time going up and a long time going down, like a proper hit record should do, And we did Top of the Pops a couple of times, which is, no longer, but it was a sort of big BBC show, where sort of promising bands, or not so promising bands, as those, got their exposure. But yeah, to answer your question again, I think this sort of divide between the US and the UK actually for me probably worked in that I'm quite a sort of private person, and at the time of Dance All Days, I had 3 children, and I wasn't married at the time, but I was, my sort of family life was very important, is very important to me, and in a sense being able to come home and just be in a very kind of low-key and real space with all of that was great. I could leave all of the craziness behind in the States and have just be myself, as it were, when I got back here.
So much more craziness to come. In the meantime, you do a lot of work in movie soundtracks. Just cool to live and die in L.A. You guys do the soundtrack, and of course, the real memorable scene in The Breakfast Club, Fire in the Twilight. Is it a different kind of writing exercise? Is that why you like it, or is it that cool to be a part of a movie history like that when you look back, or is it just a good payday and good promotion?
Oh no, it's always very much to do with the music and the opportunity to sort of explore a new genre, and I think for me, as you said, I started out just as a kid, like in love with the Beatles music and learning to how to play guitar and wanting to do all that stuff. But when I got around sort of 17, 18, I wanted to go to university, and it was at that time you had to do classical music if you wanted to do music at university. So I got into classical music, and I think that whole thing of long form composition, if you like, outside of a 3-minute pop song was something I was really wanted to do. So the opportunity to live and die in LA was ideal for me creatively. I think it gave me the chance to sort of really expand ideas instead of always having to kind of pare them down and try and fit them into that little 3-minute format.
What's the general songwriting process between you and Nick? I mean, with the Beatles, I believe John and Paul wrote separately and then came together after a lot was written. How do you guys do it?
It varies a lot. In most of the time, I must say, we write separately, I sometimes contribute lyrics to some of Nick's songs because he kind of asked me to, But there's a few exceptions. I'd say, Everybody Have Fun Tonight is actually quite a collaborative song where Nick came up with the original sort of line, and I then went away and sort of wrote this rather kind of sort of Hey Jude style ballad around it, trying to be ironic. And then when we got in the studio with Peter Wolf, he was kind of like, this is an amazing, dance hit. You've got to up the tempo. You've got to really deliver what the title suggests. So Nick and I were both really working on it at that point, with Peter, and so that was probably one of the most collaborative things we've ever done.
And that, I imagine that's the album that really changed your life. Mosaic in around, I guess, 86-ish. Two big hits on that, Let's Go, and of course Everybody Have Fun Tonight. Do you know, first of all, you mentioned the ballad reference. I didn't know, I'd never heard the slow version, I guess it's the B-side, but it's been burning up on my iPod this week. I got it off iTunes. I love it. I guess that was the original intention, for a slower version?
Yeah, that was the original demo that we recorded in Nick's flat in London, and we recorded it around Christmas time, I think, one year, because it has all these sort of like sleigh bells and stuff on it, and I just wanted to have that kind of weird sort of like Disney-esque sort of atmosphere, but things obviously change as people hear the song and see certain potentials in it. And I think after To Live and Die in LA, we did have a choice facing us, which is, like, okay, you can do more movies and, you can be a sort of arty band if you want, but you're going to find it, you won't necessarily have Geffen's support for that, or you can sort of go and have a hit record, which is what the label always wants from you, And we pretty consciously, I think, at that point, chose, we've got to have a proper hit record and sort of establish ourselves,
Right, and by the way, in the slow version, I think Wang Chung's only said once. In the single, everybody knows, of course, a little more Wang Chung for your money.
Exactly.
Are you guys? I guess obviously it was a conscious effort to sort of have a little fun with it.
Well, again, it was. I'm not blaming Peter Wolf for this, but his the dollar signs in his eyes were very much around. Everybody had fun tonight. Everybody Wang Chung tonight. And if I'm honest, I think I was a bit kind of like, oh God, we can't do that. But of course, we did do that. And in retrospect, it was probably one of the better commercial decisions we ever made.
But there is kind of a message in there. I mean, it's sort of, listening to it now from the beginning, the song kind of builds, and by the end, by when you get to the across the nation, around the world, celebrations will spread the word. It's going to sound kind of cheesy, but you almost feel like, if everyone would just Wang Chung, the world could be a better place.
I guess, yeah, it would be great if people read it like that.
Maybe I'm reaching too much.
Well, I wouldn't want to be so pretentious that it that it had that sort of global message, but great, if people read it like that. And I think growing up as I did, through the the end of the 60s and into the 70s, when I was, at that really very impressionable age with music, the music did have this kind of sense that it could really change the world, and I think actually really did change the world, at the end of the 60s. I probably had that as a kind of subtext in everything I was writing, even though, it may not be worthy of all of that early 60s and 70s stuff, but music that I still love, But, it was our little contribution,
For more, go to www.justmyshow.com.